What's up? We're back with another review, and today it is the Bikeriders. So, let's take a look at some footage.
I'm thinking of starting a riding club.
So, The Bikeriders is a 2024 film written and directed by Jeff Nichols. Really good to see him back as a side note. And it's starring Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, Tom Hardy, Mike Feist, and many others in what is a pretty stacked cast. And it follows the rise and somewhat fall of the Vandals biker club. Now, this film is sort of based on a true story because Nichols based it on a photo book which was given to him by his brother called The Bikeriders by a photographer called Danny Lyon, where from the late 60s to the 70s, Danny followed this gang of bikers and took photos of them and interviewed them along the way. So, not really based on a true story, but based on true people. Excuse me, I'm gonna take this off. It's very hot. That was a really bad idea. So, the film follows the character of Kathy, played by Comer, as she falls for a man named Benny, played by Austin Butler, who's entrenched in this motorcycle gang known as the Vandals, led by the character of Johnny, played by Tom Hardy. Mike Feist plays the photojournalist in this. He's not really named, but I suppose we are led to believe that it is the real Danny Lyon. So the very first thing I want to start with this film is the Jeff Nichols of it all. So Jeff Nichols is the director I've been a huge fan of. When I first really got into films around the age of 19, 20. He was someone who, for some reason or another, I just came across one of his films and then dived deep into his filmography. So, a film like Take Shelter was the first one I'd seen of his, and I went back and I watched Shotgun Stories, Mud also, Midnight Special, Loving. I love this guy to death. So it's safe to say I was pretty excited for this film. It originally released back in 2023 at, I think, Toronto Film Festival and also Telluride as well. It was meant to come out in December. There was a lot of studio issues. It was delayed inevitably. There was a time we didn't know this film was going to release, but it's finally here. So I mentioned before that the film is sort of loosely based on real people. And that's actually a really interesting thing over here, what Nichols has managed to do. He's taken this photo book, The Bikeriders. He's looked at the images taken in this. He's looked at the interviews taken from this. He's even had recordings where he's listened to those to do his research even further. And he's really created a world around it. So I haven't really done my research into what is actually said in the book of the Bikeriders, but I think it's maybe safe to say that a lot that happens in this film isn't necessarily true. It doesn't matter, it's a film. So we have this character of Kathy, as I mentioned, played by Comer, and she's kind of very clean-cut, Midwest girl. She ends up at this biker bar because she has to drop something off for her friend, and she locks eyes with the character of Benny, played by Austin Butler. And it is your kind of typical love at first sight kind of thing, and then she gets pulled into this biker gang, and kind of sees it go through its early days and its strengths to, I guess, sort of its downfall. Now, to kind of give you guys a feel to what this film actually is, it is kind of Goodfellas, but for biker gangs, in a way that a lot of the story is told through, not really narration, but there are these segments between Mike Feist's character and Jodie Comer's character, where he's conducting these interviews at different periods throughout the years. I think the first one is in 1963, and there's one in the 70s, there's one in the late 60s as well. And that's where we get a kind of like real meat as to what the situation is and where the gang is at that point in time. Now, these scenes are all right, they do serve a purpose, and they bring up that kind of Goodfellas comparison where we have Henry in Goodfellas, but then we have Kathy in the Bikeriders, whose point of view we are seeing the story from. But where the film really excels, obviously, are the scenes where we're with the actual biker gang, where we're with the characters of Johnny and the characters of Benny, and the characters of Kathy as they're going through this lifestyle. Now, another reason why I was anticipating this film isn't just because of Jeff Nichols. It's because I have had quite an exposure to the subculture of motorcycles, and not really motorcycle gangs, but I guess the world of motorcycles kind of encapsulates all of it. And that's mainly because my dad is a lover of motorcycles, has been ever since I've been alive, and even before that as well. I remember growing up, one of our bathrooms back home had like a huge stack of motorcycle magazines, which I probably shouldn't have been looking at, but I did. And even this sounds like a very like film bro-y kind of brag, but it's not. I do remember my dad putting on Easy Rider. He had it on VHS when I was very young, probably about 6. Again, probably shouldn't have seen that, but he was kind of cool with me just being in the room and seeing that film, I guess. And you know, those kind of things from a young age, they make an impression. I have always loved anything on 2 wheels. I have always loved motorcycles. So again, it was just another reason for me to be invested in this film. And I'll say right off the bat, I had a really good time with this, but I will delve into more of the specifics. Now, as I previously mentioned, the scenes of these kind of interviews going back and forth, I have to say they do take a little bit of the steam out of the film, but luckily they don't go on for too long. Though admittedly, I did find myself at one point or another just thinking, just get me back with the boys, you know? Because when you're with the boys and when you're seeing their story unfold, that's where this film is really firing on all cylinders. And Nichols does a really good job of making key characters in this biker gang really stand out and really feel like real people. To speak for the cast specifically, I'll start with Austin Butler because he kind of does have the least to do over here. I think his character maybe has 30 lines throughout the film. Now, Austin Butler has been on this kind of like huge stardom path ever since like Elvis and then especially Dune Part 2. And I feel like he was really cast here just because of what a presence he is. Like the first time you see his character, there's actually a particular scene where he's standing at a pool table. There is just something really magnetic about him because in terms of the lines he has to deliver, he kind of just has to look very good looking and kind of solemn and just kind of like, hey. Why did I do that? But that being said, he's really good at that kind of stuff. Someone who I am really glad to see back, because I do really enjoy him as a performer, is Tom Hardy. Now, in recent years, I feel like he's kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit. He's done those dreadful Venom movies, and he has kind of had a tendency to hide behind a very wacky costume or a very particular accent and do these sometimes larger-than-life characters or just characters that are just a bit of nothing, really. But I'm happy to report that it's not the case here. The character of Johnny is actually really, really compelling, and Hardy is great in the role. He's not doing some kind of wild accent. He's totally believable as this not really stoic, but very respected leader in this biker gang. And it does feel like a bit of a reset of what he's going for, of I'm not just going to play these bit parts or what Americans call character actors. And I say that sarcastically because actors are always playing characters. This was actually a really good meaty one for him to really sink his teeth into, and I thought he was great. Now, the standout here is Jodie Comer. She is someone I have loved for years from seeing Killing Eve, and she's been involved in a lot of different projects. Some she's had to drop out of, unfortunately. She was fantastic in The Last Duel. She was really good in The End We Start From, but I doubt anyone's heard that movie or even seen it. And she is by far and away the standout performer in this film. Now, I will say she is doing a very particular accent over here. And if you don't buy in, I don't know if the film will really work for you because she is the main storyteller here. But for me personally, I bought in immediately. She's probably one of the most talented people working throughout film at the moment when it comes to this kind of accent work. I remember there was an episode of Killing Eve in one of the seasons where she goes through these different accents as her spy character, from Australian to American to Russian. And apparently Nichols did have actual recordings of the real Kathy. And I don't have access to those recordings, but apparently Comer is doing a pretty one-to-one impression of what this woman sounded like. And that's really impressive. Now, to come back to my Goodfellas analogy on this film does another thing which Goodfellas essentially invented, and that's the art of the needle drop. For those that don't know what a needle drop is in film terms, that's basically dropping a very, very good song at a very, very good moment. Now, we've all seen Goodfellas, it's full of great songs, and it is no different over here. Like, I actually can't stress how much it is banger after banger after banger. Granted, you probably do need to have been exposed to a lot of this kind of music before, or you won't know them. But for those of you that do, it's a real treat to hear what's going on here. And overall, I just think this is a really, really well-made film. Nichols has taken this inspiration from this photo book. He's paid homage to the images in that photo book with some of the images he creates in this. And he's created this story and this world around these supposedly real people, which is actually really compelling. Now, again, it's not perfect. I'm not going to say this is an out-and-out masterpiece. I don't even think it's top 3 of what Nichols has done before, but that's only testament to what a prolific director he is. So for those of you out there that love motorcycles, you'll definitely love this film. For those of you that want to learn more about subcultures, you'll find a lot to chew on over here. And I just genuinely think this could be one for a general cinema goer to just go and watch and actually really enjoy. The people who I watched it with tonight seem to really enjoy it as well. Surprisingly, a really packed theater. I had to go to an early screening because that's the only one I could find a seat for. So hopefully this film does well. So yeah, The Bikeriders. I recommend it. To do the whole usual stick, as always, thank you for watching. Please get involved in the comment section. Tell me if you want to see The Bikeriders. Tell me if you liked it, if you have seen it. Tell me if you hated it. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, please. If you can, share the video. As I mentioned in my Inside Out 2 review, I will not be on the AdLib podcast this week. I don't know if they're going to be talking about The Bikeriders. I don't know if it's released in Malta yet, but I guess you can just watch this review instead. I don't really know what else is releasing soon, but rest assured I will go and see it. But until then, thank you for watching.